Right. So tonight we are going to talk about images at FamilySearch. Probably more than you would want to know, but we will see a lot. That's for sure. So I get this started. You know, we use record images all the time, but we use the ones that are transcribed. That seems to be the thing that we love because they're so easy to work with. You search by name, you find the person, you source them, and you've got what you need. Sooner or later, you run into these people that are more elusive, and the index records don't help you any. And oftentimes what happens then is our people just stop. We are going to hope that they won't if we can help them to understand how to find more records besides the ones that are just indexed. And this can be a laborious process. It's a lot of work. It's not easy. But, you know, or President Eyring said several years ago, talked about our elusive ancestors that were going to be hard to find, but that work was going to be worth it. Because in the end, their opportunity to progress in heaven is dependent upon us finding out things about them. And so we need to learn how to delve into the images, especially those that don't have indexes. So FamilySearch talks about the pipeline. This is the term they use for the process of getting a record that's in some archive into our hands so that we can use it in the tree. And so this is called, the process is called a digital pipeline. So I found a picture of a pipeline that is kind of an optical illusion because the pipe doesn't really get smaller, but in the picture it looks like it does. And that's great because that's the analogy that we want to use. At the right end is where FamilySearch can dump in literally millions of images a day. And they do tons of images. The problem is that as those images are processed and go down through the pipe tends to get smaller and smaller, and the pipeline backs up. And this is literally what happens in the process of getting images to us. This is why there are so many images that are not indexed, because that last step is the indexing end, and indexing goes much slower than the process of digitizing goes. In fact, I heard a couple of years ago where they talked about the fact that at that point, we already had about 30 years worth of indexed images backed up. And so you see the issue that we're dealing with. FamilySearch is working desperately at finding OCR programs that work good with both typed and also with handwriting. They've gone into using OCR on the obituaries. And of course, we have to come around behind and fix them, things like that, but it's moving the work along faster. This pipeline can be kind of made into a flow chart, which is a very simplified version. This is not everything that has to happen. But in general, you have records that are over at an archive. Then either once upon a time, they were microfilmed, or today they're made into digital images immediately, or the microfilm is digitized. Then those raw digital images are sent to people that create waypoints. And waypoints are just bookmarks or tabs that are put into all these images in a record set so that they're divided into logical groupings. It could be a volume or a year or something like that. They break them down into the logical groupings of images. And once they have been processed that far, they're put online. And when they're first put online, they're not even in the card catalog. You can't find them in the card catalog. That's why they created the image collection search that they have, because there are many records that aren't even processed far enough to get into the catalog. Well, once they're out there, they do work on cataloging them, and eventually these records are found in the catalog, but a lot of them aren't. Then once they're in the catalog, we've got somebody that's got feedback. Can we please mute yourselves? I'll mute everybody. Okay, there we go. Once the records have been added to the catalog, they sit there until FamilySearch is about ready to start transcribing them. Then they move them over into historical records, so that when you go to records, the ones that you find there that aren't indexed yet are the ones that'll be next in line for indexing. And then of course, once they're indexed, they're fully transcribed, they're transcribed and they're fully searchable in records. So this is kind of the process that a record goes through to get, to the point where we can actually use them. And these transcribed records then become our hints, and they also become the things that we normally will create sources from. Okay, another way to look at it is this way. There's about 1.4 billion records in the historical records. That means pages. A record is a page. So there's almost 1.5 billion pages of records in historical records. On those pages are approximately 7.77 billion names. You might think, well, why aren't there 7 billion people in Tree? Well, remember, some of us are in there hundreds of times. All kinds of records about us. But there are about 7.7 billion searchable names, and they make up about 2,700 collections, different groups of records. Excuse me. But there's also about 6.36 billion images that are in searchable records that aren't over in historical records. These are those records that nobody knew about before until they created the image search. Okay, of these 6.33 billion images, only about 1.73 billion are actually in the catalog. All the rest of them, the only way to find them is an image search. So we will talk about that today. Now, if that's not all, you've got to understand that there are still billions of records that need to come in. Some of them are on microfilms that have never been digitized. And others are the ones that the camera crews around the world are dumping into FamilySearch literally every day. And so this is going to be a never-ending flow of information. So these images that FamilySearch has are basically found in 3 places. They're found in the card catalog, the ones that are listed there. Some of them can be seen in historical records. And then the rest of them, if they've at least gotten placed on the internet, are in images. And so we're going to take a quick look at each group and just talk about them a little bit to make sure that we're clear on the ins and outs of each of these groups, starting with the card catalog. So to get to the card catalog, we go to search and then click on catalog. And up comes this search engine where you're going to start by either searching for a place, a surname, a title, an author, a subject, or keywords. Most of the time, we leave it on place, which is what's showing here. Type in our place to see what kind of records FamilySearch has. Now, since we're a little remote from Salt Lake, the smart thing to do so that you can see what you can use immediately is to click this online. That filters out everything that's only hard copy. If you want to know the other stuff FamilySearch has, of course, you want to click on any. But in this case, if we're talking about I want to get my grubby hands on something, then I need to know what's online. And so I'll click on online for right now and then see what I can get. When I go look at some of these results that I get that are online, there's various kinds of results based on symbols, these little symbols that they have at the end of entries for films or whatever the case might be. These all happen to be films. And so if you see just the camera, that means those are digital images only, and there's no transcription. If you can see the magnifying glass with the camera, those are the nice ones to get because that means you've got a digital image and you've also got a transcription, so you can search it by the names and then look at the original records. There's still records that only have the microfilm roll there, and those are ones that are not digitized yet. And if you need something digitized, if you'd like to have something digitized, you can always make a case in FamilySearch and give them the number of the film and tell them that you would like them to digitize that, and they will often move that up in the process of digitizing and bump it up to where it gets done sooner. The one that drives us crazy are the ones with the little locks on the camera. Those are restricted. Usual restriction is you got to be at a family history center. This is one of the best reasons for why we need to still operate. The one that you're seeing right now that I have highlighted is one where there are images that you can see, or there is a transcription you can see. The transcription isn't restricted, but the images are. And then the next group down are ones that can drive us crazy because they're only in digital format and we can't see them. Now, if you go to the Family History Center, that little lock should disappear and you would then be able to see those. On some sets of records, you'll see this little sentence in red that says, in this case, Switzerland church records are available online. Click here. And it will take you over into historical records to that collection and make it real easy for you to do the search. So those are the possible things that can come up, and they'll come up under almost any of the things that we're searching today as far as results. Okay, when we're searching for places in the catalog, one thing to remember is the catalog thinks about locations going from big to little. Our mind usually goes from small to big. Like if I'm looking for my father's birth record, he was born in the city of Globe, the county of Gila, the state of Arizona. So my logical thing to do is type Globe, Gila, Arizona. And the card catalog comes back with a possibility of United States, Arizona, Gila, Globe. That's the way it thinks. And if that's what you want, click on it because that becomes a standardized result. And standardized results work better. Lost my place there. Now, so you would click on that kind of green bar and it would put that up in the place location, and you click search and you would go search there. Sometimes when you start typing in, they start giving you results. And I put in a location in Germany and I've come back with at least 3 results for that name. And it's going to be up to me to try to figure out which one of those, if any, is the one that I want. So sometimes when you get into some locations, it's a a real guessing game. You almost would have to probably look at all three of these and look at a map to figure out where they're located to decide which one you really need. And there'll oftentimes be several choices. And if you pick a real common name, like Fresno even, you're going to find 7 or 8 Fresnos around the world that are in the card catalog, and you'd need to pick which one. Now, speaking of Fresno, sometimes you get that result that says no matching place. Two reasons for it. Either A, you can't spell, which is my problem there, or the other one that the card catalog has nothing for that location. So like when I was doing Globe, Gila, Arizona, if I got nothing, that means they probably don't have anything for Globe. I would then just try for the county of Gila in Arizona. And I'm sure they would have something for that. So just remember, when you see no matching places, first check your spelling. And secondly, just figure then if you do spell it right, that there's nothing in the card catalog. Okay, so I'm going to do a little search here. And I'm trying to find some biographical information on an ancestor who lived in Pennsylvania. So you see over here that I put in a place. I just put Pennsylvania, United States. I've got it set for online. I clicked enter, and it's going to give me everything about Pennsylvania records that are online. As I went down through the list of things, I saw something that was interesting. Biographies, and there were 63 collections. So I looked at those collections and I saw one that kind of got my interest. Chester County Historical Society, genealogical clippings file to 1968. I thought, interesting. I have family in Chester. Maybe I'll find something on my family. So I clicked on it. And when I got to it, it showed that it was in film. They had a whole lot of films. And I thought this was really interesting. And I took a picture of parts of the rolls. There's 151 rolls of microfilm in this collection. And with no logic or rhyme or reason, some of them have the little restriction over the camera and some don't. It was really interesting. The K's were all restricted, but the L's weren't. So I have no idea why. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. So I thought, okay, let's look at a restricted one just so you can see what happens. When you click on something that's restricted, what should show up is this little photo thing that fills up all the little boxes where the thumbnails go. And then you should get a message. There's a couple of different ones, but the one that's almost always there is this one that says, to view these, you need to go to the Family History Center or to a FamilySearch affiliate library. And there is one of those in Fresno. The downtown Fresno library is now an affiliate library of FamilySearch. And so everything that a Family History Center can do, you can now do also when you can get in, because I don't think they're letting patrons in yet, at the downtown Fresno library, up in the genealogy room upstairs. But this shows you what a restricted record group looks like. There are other kinds of restrictions. A few records can only be viewed in certain parts of the world or only by members. They're trying to work out a better message that will truly tell you the reason why. Because I know right now there's a lot of people complaining about this, wishing FamilySearch would just throw them open, but they can't because these are all part of contracts that they have to be able to host these images. Okay, so now what happens if I click the others that aren't restricted? This is what I see now. And I can see that there are things on each of these frames, and they look like newspaper clippings. So I blew one up, and it's a Second World War military article about Sergeant Paul Labiak, who was killed. He was a Marine. And so these are articles, probably mostly casualty articles, that I thought very interesting. There's a lot of great stuff. The sad part is they're not indexed, and you would have to do some searching. But this just kind of gives you an idea of something that's hidden out there. 152 or 151 rolls of this material just for that one county of Chester. Okay, so now historical records. Those are the ones that we use a lot. They're the ones that are our hints. They're the things that we generally go to find sources. They're found in the search menu under records. And they're either transcribed or not transcribed. So when you first go over and click on records, you get a page like this, and you have a couple of options. Actually, you got 3 options here. One is to do a regular search, and that's probably the place we go to. I'll tell you a secret. You'll be surprised how often you can get better results coming over to this when you're working on somebody in tree than clicking on the family search link on the person's page and doing your search there. Because on that page, it fills in all the boxes with every little detail that they have on the person, and that makes it harder to find the person than if you would come over in historical records and just fill in the minimal amount. Lost my place again. So this search engine is probably a better search engine than the one found on people's pages. You can also do some filtering by clicking on the clickable map and selecting a location, and then it will filter you down to just records from whatever location you pick. Like you could click United States and then California and only search California records. And then the last type of search you can do is to start out by picking a location or picking a collection. You could put in there census, the word census, it'll pull up all census records, or you could put in a place. You could put in like California and it would show you just California things, or Fresno. See what kind of things come up for Fresno. So there's 3 kinds of searches there. Now, if you go over and you do start browsing collections, the listing can be a little bit confusing, where it'll show you a title, and to the left of the title, it'll tell you about digitizing. To the right of the title, it's going to say records. That means if they have any, how many names have been transcribed from that collection. So this Alabama births and christenings, there's about 165,000 names in that collection. It'll tell you the last time it was added to. And so for this first one then, this is a collection. There's nothing to the left of the word Alabama. So it is index only, no images. You come down to the third one where it says Alabama Civil War service records of Union soldiers. You see the little camera and you see a little box behind it. And that's because there are images and there's also an index. There's only 31,000, but when you think about it, I'm amazed that 31,000 Alabamans joined the Union. Now, of course, a lot of times they did that during the war after they were captured. They flipped and went over to the other side. That's probably where most of those came from. And then occasionally, like the last one on this page for the probate records, there's images, but there's no transcription. So that's why it says browse images. If you click there, it'll take you over to the images for that collection. So those are the three possible things that will show up when you're looking at historical records. Now, if I do filter something, like in this case, I've filtered to California, I could do the search over here on the right-hand side, and it will only search the collections that are labeled as California collections. But I want you to notice that there's also on the left-hand side of the screen, there's a set of learning courses you can look at. It says we have 9 learning courses. They only show 3. If you click on the see all, you'll see the others. So they have all kinds of classes you can review. Most of these are very short. Some of them are long, where they will tell you about how did you research there. And then underneath there, it also provides you a link to the wiki. So they're trying to make this an all-inclusive kind of a website where they can give you helps along the way. Now, once you've done a search, if you didn't find anything below that search box, they start showing you all the collections that are available for that. I did a search for California. And so it shows the first 5 records in California by alphabet. It tells me there's 144 altogether. So these are all record sets that are indexed because these are immediately below the search engine. You notice it says there's 144 other or total collections. So if I click on that, it's going to show me all of them. You notice some of these have the little camera. Those are the ones that besides the index, I also have the images that I can look at, as none of those are restricted. Now, once you go below that, then they show you the image-only historical records. These are those records I mentioned to you that are probably headed towards being the next things that are going to be indexed, because they've already been put up on the FamilySearch website in historical records, but they're not indexed yet. And so you can scroll through them, they categorize them. And if they have more than what they show, you can click on the show all, and it will show you all the different sets that they have and tell you how many images that they have. Okay. And then below that is yet another search engine that probably most people have never even noticed. They have a little catalog searcher down at the bottom where while you're on this page, would you like to look at the catalog? And you can say, you can tell what category of record you want to look at, or you can just leave it at all. And since I'm doing California, it's going to show me everything in the catalog for California in this case. So under birth, marriage, and death, there's just 2,138 entries. But I could do my searching right here. I don't even have to leave the record search page to do it because they'll all be listed for me down there. So, I mean, they've done a lot of things to try to help us get what we're after. Okay, so now the point of tonight is to try to introduce you to these historical images. Images are those records that are largely underutilized because nobody knows about them. They don't even know that there's a second search for records in that search drop down, which says images. And I don't realize that this is really about 80% of the collection of FamilySearch that's online right now. Okay, so FamilySearch can't do anything about the need to manually search these. You're going to have to do this. So, but what they've done is they've tried to help you get to these records. That's the thing. They can't help you do the physical search, but they can sure help you get to something to search. And so that's what they've done. So you click on images, and it will take you to this page where they show you how many, and this thing is a scrolling number that just keeps scrolling. And I guarantee you it's higher now than it was when I took this image. And you basically start with a place. Remember, you can't search for names. So you can search for a place, and then they have a lot of other options. You can narrow things down by providing a date, a life event, or other types of things. Okay, so what we'll do is let's explore and try to find my father's birth record. And so I'm just going to type on that home page, Globe Gila, Arizona. And this time I get a couple of choices. Here's a globe in Transvaal, South Africa. That's not it. I have one for Gila County, Arizona Territory, and one for the state. Well, my dad was born in 1908. So that means it's in the territory, because up until 1912, it was in a territory. So I'm going to have to click on the territory choice. And so that's what I clicked on. Now, because Globe's just this little town in a very sparsely settled county, I didn't even feel a need to choose any other options. If I was Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, I would definitely go the full shot on this. But for an odd location like this, I think I've got everything I need. So I'm just going to click Search Image Groups. And what comes up is a list of choices. It says there's 17 results, and I just clipped it after the first two. They look identical. In fact, they're actually coming out of a couple, 3 rolls of film that are all very similar records. So from this, I really can't tell much. The first set only has 40 images. The second set has 113 images. That's about all I can tell. So I'll click on that first one that had the 40 images, and I get the little image symbols, the little thumbnails. And I took a close look at it and determined that this was a different county. And so that wasn't going to work good. But I realized that there's a link here that says show all 762 images. So it's going to show all the records for that whole roll of film instead of just the 40 for Graham County, because that's what it started out with. So I clicked on that, and then I came over, and this thing's going crazy. There we go. I clicked on the little ribbon symbol so that I could get the ribbon, so I could scroll through, and I scrolled through these 700 images looking for page breaks that look kind of like this image number 2, which is a cover page for a volume. And I kept looking at them until I found the one that said Gila County, because that's the county I wanted. And so it turned out to be on image 326. So I was able to find the volume that I needed. Then I needed to scroll through that to find the month of October in 1908. And so on image 360, I found that page because it starts at the top of October 1st, 1908. My dad was born on the 30th, and sure enough, in that blue box, there's the 30th, Givens, no first name. You notice only 3 of the children have first names. Doctors helped birth the kids and left. If they didn't have a name, he didn't care. He would just leave and let them worry about names later. So once they index these, it's going to be a challenge to find them, because my dad won't be found under his first name. It's only going to have his last name. But I know this is him because it's a male. He's white, and his parents are Joe C. and Krista Givens, who were born in the United States. And this record was put into this book on the 31st of October, on the next day, by the doctor. And so there's my father's birth record. And he never knew he had a birth record. He had to create a delayed birth record for Social Security and never knew he actually had two of these, one from the county and one from the city. So let's talk a little bit about finding records. Okay, you need to look at collections and think about them a little bit. And in general, here's something I would suggest. Most records are going to have some kind of an index often. If they have one, FamilySearch tries to set these at the front. If you don't see an index at the beginning of the images, quickly go to the very end and see if they're there. If there's nothing at the end or the front, then most likely there's no index. But usually there is. Then secondly, you're going to want to figure out, is this an alphabetical record? You know, are they organizing things by the alphabet or by date? Or is there some kind of a hybrid where they have like they're doing it by date and then by alphabet? So you need to kind of get in your mind a picture of what's going on here. So if it's indexed, it's probably going to give you a page number. If that's the case, you're ready now to start looking. And you won't have to work very hard to figure out where it's at. Understand that most records are organized in some kind of sequence. If you are searching an alphabet, let's say there's 1,000 images. I'm going to walk you through a process that would probably work. Let's say there's 1,000 images to make it simple, and I'm looking for Jones, and this is an alphabetical order. Well, J is about the 10th letter of the alphabet, and there's 26 letters in the alphabet, so let's just go to the center. Go to image 500 and see what letter of the alphabet it is. If it's more, the name more on number 500, well, then we're past the J's. So you're going to want a smaller number. So go down to say 400 because it shouldn't be too far before more that you find Jones. And if on that page you find Jackson, then we got to go up a little. So try image 420. And if that's Morris, you know you're almost there. And you could, at this point, start on 420. And since you're a little past more, you could just go backwards, page by page, hitting the back arrow until you find the page where the Moores are located. It shouldn't take you more than 4, 5, 6 steps to find people using this kind of a process. If you're searching by date, and let's say there's 1,000 images, and the range for the document is 1900 to 1920, and you need about 1915. Well, 1915 is about 3/4 of the way through, so start at image 750. And if that's too high, then go down a little. If it's too low, go up a little. Make it easy on yourself. You do not have to go through every image. Kind of play the game of, okay, I'll go to this location and I'll go halfway one way or the other and then back until I eventually hit the right spot. Not really that hard. But always do beware of one thing. Everything's not always in perfect order. So when it's alphabetical, sometimes things are filed out of order a little bit alphabetically. And if they're filed by date, especially if you're on birth or death records, if they're individual documents, they often are scattered around a little, and you might have to search for a whole month to find the one you want because they're only entered in the order that the record made it to the office. They didn't bother to put them in numeric order. Okay, and if you have the page number, remember, that's not the image number, that's the page number. You're going to have to look for the page numbers. They're usually in the upper right or left corner. Sometimes at the bottom, but usually at the upper right or left. find the page number, and then decide how far you got to go to get to the page you want. Okay, so let's try one of those. I'll try to find a will from my great uncle John Sands. He died in Columbia County, Pennsylvania in 1881. And I'd like to see if he's got a will or probate. So I went to the image search and I said, okay, give me Columbia County, and this time I'm going to start doing some filtering. I picked the year 1881. Now that's kind of dangerous because the actual probate or the filing of the will could have been in 1882 or later. I probably should have put like 1881-1883 or something like that. But this helps the system pull out records that cover that date. Life events I left alone. What I did do is I went down to record type, and where it says search all records, I clicked there and pulled up probate indexes, because that's what I'd like to find, is some kind of a probate index. Okay, once I got all that, I clicked search, and I came up with two results. And they cover 1881, and it has probate indexes, 1,200 images, probate indexes, 1,800 images. So I clicked on the first one and found out that it covered the letters A through K. So I know this is alphabetical. And Sands is an S, so it should be in the second set. So I clicked on the second set where there's 1,081 images. When I opened it up, I noticed right away in box number 6 over there that this book is L to R. Well, I know I'm going to have to scroll through looking, quickly through all these kind of pages, looking for another couple of pages like this and probably a black page that has a film number on it until I can find where the S volume is. And so I used the drag bar and rapidly scrolled through until I came up to image 610, where it had the book for S to Z. And now I was ready to see what I could do. So how is this book organized? Well, it had a index at the front. And it's kind of a funky thing. It's called a COT index. This COT index had an indexing system that was used for a lot of land records, deeds, and records like that, and also probate, wills, and those kind of records. They essentially went A through Z and then took the first letters, but it wasn't always in truly like SA, and then the next possible combination. They skipped around a little bit. And then on top of that, they would pull out certain names that there were enough for and give them a page of their own. So like Sands in this case is over on page 95. So this made it real nice for me because after this big page here that you see, they started showing the subpages, and I just glanced over there and found where the S's were and saw that Sands had its own page, and I was done. So I need to go to find page 95 in this roll. It started on image 610. So what I did with that ribbon of images is I scrolled through and I chose, we were at 610. I need to go to 95, so that's close to 100. So I found image 703 and I looked at it, 702, and it was blank. So I went to 703 and that was page 51. And I needed, and I can't remember now what it was, 95. I'm 95 pages short. I'm short of page 95 by about 44. So I said, okay, let's try image 747. And that didn't work. After a couple of tries, I finally found there obviously were blank pages in there. I ended up on page 766. And here's my list of Sands, and here's my John with his will from 1881, and it's in Will Book 5, page 57. So that's what I need. So I said, since I know exactly what I need now, thanks to this index that can only be found in the records images, not in records, but in images, I'll now go over to the catalog and just pull up Columbia County, Pennsylvania, and then go look at the probate records that they have. And I found, here's the wills and administrations entry. So I looked at that, and here's volume 5, and sure enough, it covers 1881. So that's the volume I need. And I go to it, and the first page, that's really the first page of the book because they put the index first. Page 1 of the book is on image number 20 or 33. And there's 2 pages to the image. So to get to 57, I needed to add about 28 pages to the 33. So I said, let's try page 61. And so I changed it up to 61. I just missed it. I had to move to image 63. And at the bottom of the page, here's the beginning of his handwritten will. The will of John Sands of Greenwood Township, Columbia County, state of Pennsylvania. And so what can I do at this point? Notice it says attached to family tree. I can source it right here. I can click on that source and I can do an actual source for this. It'll take me into record search or into the sourcing tool and allow me to do that. Okay. Now, the other thing I can do is what I like to do is I took a screenshot of this. It's finished on the next page. And so I put a screenshot of that page and then put them together in a single image so that I could put this in memories for John. And then I did a transcription, the key things. Now it was interesting. He has 2 daughters. They were young in age. And so they're to retain possession of the clothing of their mother, who is dead. He spells out the sale of the land and house where the daughters are living. He was going to give them till April. If it didn't sell in April, wait till September for whatever reason and sell it then. If the daughters die without issue, then the income was to go to his brothers and his wife's brother, this Charles, and brothers Charles and J.W. Conant. And the daughters were to choose their own guardians, which was something that had to be done in Pennsylvania. So anyway, this is our adventures through going through these records. I hope it's helped you kind of see what all is there. There's an awful lot there. And it's not really as daunting as it looks. You just have to take a deep breath and dig in, because sometimes you need to, because our people just can't be identified by the records that are indexed at this point. Sometimes we just simply need this, and they are there for us. So, questions? I'm going to stop sharing, and my wife wanted me to remind her that if you don't have a last name on here, please come over and click on participants and then hover over your name and click more and change your name so that we have a last name that goes with you. So do we have any questions? You can come off mute and ask them. And I will stop the recording.
That was just a lot.